can they present themselves in a way that a customer will find them, professional? The ability to make eye contact and shake my hand and be conversational. I think phones have really taken away some of the conversationalness of people. And so as a technician, you've got to be able to go out there and converse and find that common ground, like I said.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you again and looking forward to a great show today as we talk to Travis Ringe. That's right, we're going to be talking to him about all things that he's got going on in his life, as well as his story, and of course, pricing, which is a big issue in the home services industry. It's going to be a good conversation, and we are looking forward to that. But before we do, as we always do, Brian and I are going to spend a little bit of time talking ourselves, and we're going to turn to Brian for our quote.
Make sure you don't start seeing yourself through the eyes of those who don't value you. Anonymous. I'm going to say
good
Nate.
old
Right?
Good old
I'm going to
Anon.
throw that to you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Because
Yeah.
I hate the anonymous quote, but somebody said it. It wasn't anonymous. They didn't write it on a sticky note and leave it somewhere. You know what I mean?
Well, I wish I could be attributed to something so profound, but that does sound good.
That's good. That's good. Well, it's good in life and in general, and I certainly hope I instill that sense into my kids. But what are we talking about?
We're talking about price.
We're talking about prices, baby. And you don't want to build your price or decide what you're going to go present to a client. Certainly that would be the biggest sin, based on what some other client who didn't value your service thought about what your pricing should be.
And I'll go as far to say, don't build your price book when you're feeling insecure either.
Yeah.
build your price book when you're feeling confident.
just press pause on your favorite Waste No Day episode right when we get you real fired up. So that would be when a guest is talking, obviously, and hit pause and then go do your price book. Beat your chest on the way over.
Yes. That's right. I am worth this. Yeah.
Yep. Your value as now, if you're a hack, your value isn't that much and you're probably overcharging.
Hacks don't listen to this podcast, Brian.
No, you're probably right. Hacks host this podcast.
Touche. Yes.
Look, if every other job you do requires someone else to go back out and fix it, and all you can think about is how quick you can get out of here and go hit the couch or the whatever, your prices are probably a little high. And you're probably not valuing yourself enough, but you're not valuing that customer enough. You're not valuing this trade enough, and you need to step your game up. But once you've stepped your game up and become a person of value, you should be charging for that value.
That's a good point, Brian. And it reminds me of a podcast we did with Ellen Rohr back on December 19th of 2022. Talking about charging more than it costs. And that was a really in-depth dive upon where to configure prices and how we even get there. And we might jump into some of that with Travis today. I don't know. But what we're trying to come to is a place of confidence in knowing that your service and the value of your service in the home services industry is generally underpriced. It is generally lower than it should be. And as people get farther and farther away from the working with your hands model and the do it yourself. I mean, there's always going to be a contingent that does that. But, as people get farther and farther away from I gladly tackle my own plumbing on the weekends, your price needs to gradually go up and up and up because you are becoming a more sought after commodity with less supply in the marketplace each and every day that we get closer to that?
I was on Tommy Mello's show, the home service expert. I forget. I always confuse the book and the podcast name. The home service expert podcast. It is my favorite trade podcast for sure. And getting on that show was a bucket list thing for me as a one of the Waste No Day audience members and I were talking about recently. And he was telling me his bucket list item, like mine was to get on Tommy's show, is to get on Waste No Day. So I told him, I said, "Where's your revenue at now?" And he told me his business. I said, "Okay, set the number. Your big, hairy, audacious goal, your BHAG. What's your number? Let me know what that number is. I'll help you get there for whatever I can do. And when you get there, we'll do an episode about it. And the quicker, the better, because that will be an awesome episode, wouldn't it?"
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
I don't know if I want to say I didn't ask him if I could talk about this on air, so I'm not going to say his name, but I will text him later. And if he says so, I'll say it next week. Yeah. So anyway, I was on Tommy's show, which was huge for me. I loved it. And I read a poem, and I've never read a poem on this show. So this is my favorite poem. And when I say my favorite, that means it's the only poem I know because it is. It was written. So I was just thinking, like, should we do that first or should we do the review of the week first? Let's do the review of the week first. And then we'll drop the poem and just go right into the, then we'll bring Travis into the studio with us. Right, buddy? Right.
Exactly.
We'll have our assistant fetch him from the lobby and bring him into the studio. You know how professional we are.
Of course. Well, it is that time of the week where we do try to be a little bit more professional and read one of your amazing reviews. And so, Brian, who do we got today?
So this is actually from Facebook Messenger. I get 98.8% of all of our reviews are just people messaging me on Facebook. I tend to, at least the ones that are a little more drawn out, I'll screenshot and send to Nate. So, if you text me one, Nate sees probably 70% of them. If it's just like, "Hey, love the show," I'll hit you back, but I don't typically send that to Nate, but a long message I'm sending to Nate for sure. So this is a man named Tom Ash. So Spotify recently released, if you listen to a show regularly, I guess they rate you on how much you listen to it over the year. Is it the year? The month? I don't know what they do. It's November, so it's not the year. But it showed him, it sent, and I've gotten a bunch of these from listeners who listen through Spotify, so I know they're doing it actively. But it says, "You've listened for X number of minutes. You are a top 1% fan of Waste No Day." And he's the only one that sent me a 1%er. Most of the people who have sent me that have sent me, they're in the top 10%, which is still awesome. But this is a 1% fan, which means they've probably heard most of the episodes and they just listened to the new one that comes out. And I'm guessing he, maybe came onto it later and went back and just listened to all the old ones. And so he's killing the game, obviously, if he's listening like that. This guy's making some money. So here's what Tom Ash had to say. "Just wanted to thank you, Brian, for contributing so much to the trades. I listen to your podcast every week, and it helps me handle objections and serve my clients at the highest level. I am a selling tech electrician from Brisbane, Australia. And this year, I'm on track to hit 1 million in annual sales. Next year, I will aim for 2. I don't think I would be achieving my goals without the help of your podcast. Thank you so much and keep up the great work. It is much appreciated. Good day, mate." Oh, sorry, you didn't say that part. So can we get Tom to do an intro with it? You want to get Tom to do an intro with us?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be awesome just to have his accent on there.
Yeah.
Dude, totally appreciate the message. He then went and posted the picture of the Spotify thing in the Waste No Day Facebook group, which was awesome because, again, he's the only one who's posted a 1%er in there. But, man, we appreciate the review, Tom. We appreciate you being a top 1% listener. I would say let's send you a Waste No Day hat for sure. But one, we don't have your address. Two, we don't have Waste No Day hats. So can't do that. All right. And if you would be so kind, by all means, shoot us a message. We'll check it out. But really what helps the show is jumping on that Apple podcast app, scroll down to reviews, read a few to get some inspiration, press write a review, click that 5-star button, and then write us a little message and press send or submit. Just remember, whatever nickname you pick for yourself when you're doing it, that's your nickname for life in your Apple podcast app. So by all means, put Waste No Day in there. We love that. But remember, when you're rating Joe Rogan's show or whatever, 6 months from now, it's going to say, Tom, I love Waste No Day. So just know that's coming.
And we're okay with that.
Yeah, we're fine with that. All right, on to bigger and better things than talking about how much we love our own show. Let's move to Mr. Douglas Malik. Douglas Malik was born in the great state of Michigan in 1877. He also wrote the official state song of Michigan, which is called Michigan, My Michigan, in 1902. Just so happens to have written my favorite poem. This is a poem that, for me, is just an inspirational word in tougher times. Like if I'm going through it, I don't like pull the poem up and read it to myself, but I think sometimes like this is me getting stronger right now. You know, it's adversity, and the trades are seeing some adversity right now. So this is all of us getting stronger, getting better, getting faster, getting leaner, learning to innovate more. But here's what Mr. Malik had to say about it. The tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and light, but stood out in the open plain and always got its share of rain, never became a forest king, but lived and died a scrubby thing. The man who never had to toil to gain and farm his patch of soil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. Good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger wind, the stronger trees. The further sky, the further length. The more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow. Where thickest lies the forest growth, we find the patriarchs of both. And they hold counsel with the stars, whose broken branches show the scars. Of many winds and of much strife, this is the common law of life. Douglas Malik.
Whew, man. I was going to say you should close your eyes to listen to that, but most of you are driving right now, so it's probably not recommended.
Pull over, back it up a little bit, close your eyes, and listen.
Yeah, good for him, man. You know, Michigan finally doing something productive.
Other than beating Penn State and Ohio State this year. What's up? Yeah, baby. I actually got to release Aaron Gainer's episode. I was like, oh man, because like his episode released 2 days after the Michigan-Ohio State game this year, here in 2023. And I was like chewing my fingers because we left it wide open on the show. It was like, we have no idea who's going to win this thing. Aaron Gainer's an Ohio State fan. I'm a Michigan fan. And it was every bit as close as we expected it to be. There were no blowouts this year. Game ended on a pick by 4 points. Like it was just madness. But like I said on that show, if we lost, I'd have to delete my social media account because I talked too much trash.
Well, yeah, we all regret that Michigan won, and you're still on social media, Brian. So thanks for that, and thanks for the poem. Very kind, actually. A good reminder about what adversity does for us.
Amen. That is what adversity is. That's what our struggles and our problems are. They're not struggles and problems. They're growth. I don't like to talk about the gym, buddy. I don't like to talk about the gym. But if you're going to force me to.
I can't remember the last time you did, but
we don't grow stronger until we break that muscle tissue down. That's it. Until we face the problem of the weight we can't get off us, we're not going to grow. We're not going to get bigger. We're not going to get stronger. All right, that's enough about the gym.
Well, it's not the last that we'll hear of it, I'm sure, Brian. But it's also not the last that we hear about adversity, as we are going to put somebody who's well familiar with adversity and has overcome some of that in his business career up on the show here. And it's now time to put Mr. Travis Ringe in your passenger seat. Our guest today is Travis Ringe. Alongside his brother Tyler Ringe, they co-founded Pro Skill Services and successfully built the business over 12 years, culminating in its sale when Travis was 32 years old. He has since helped over a dozen business owners in selling their own companies and currently holds leadership roles in 5 companies across tech, recycling, and home services. Known for a leadership style that emphasizes transparency, family values, and doing what's right, Travis excels in diverse business environments. Additionally, he mentors aspiring entrepreneurs, sharing his insights and emphasizing the importance of ethical and transparent business practices. And we're hoping to hear a little bit more about that and everything else that he has got going. Welcome to the show here, Travis.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming on, buddy. It's good to talk to you again. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. What was that, about a month ago now?
Yeah, right at that.
Yeah, it was a good time for me in general, just because I like talking to successful people, but successful contractors specifically, but also, as everybody had told me, like I told you, since I've been hanging out in Phoenix here, it seems like everybody I hang out with is like, have you hung out with Travis Ringe? And I'm like, no. Oh, you have to. He's such a great guy. And at least from our 45-minute conversation, that seemed to check out. And then we were just chatting before the show here, talking in depth about Never Split the Difference and the impact that we all feel that Chris Voss has had on sales in general, but also just communication in general. We're talking about using it with our family, for crying out loud. And like, not many sales books, quote unquote sales books before have done that. But man, that thing is it's really revolutionary.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the first books that when I started reading, I read. And one of the most handed out books out of my personal library when I was running Pro Skill is that I always recommended people, start with that one, because I think it's an intriguing book. And like you said, Brian, you can apply a lot of what you learn to your everyday life. So it actually makes a difference in your day to day.
Yep. So negotiating, obviously selling, but just communication, like when you're starting on his principle of, in a successful negotiation, both parties win. If you're going into any kind of conversation where, it could be an argument, could be a debate, could be just you trying to get something or you trying to solve a situation. If you walk in going, both parties we're both going to win here, or I won't feel like I did my job, quote unquote. Right. And then when you go in from that perspective, which I try to do way more now, even if I'm like writing somebody up or something, we need to both feel like we walked out of here with a win, even if it's a disciplinary action. So that thing by itself was just a huge principle that you could just build upon in so many different ways.
Well, Travis, we'd like to build upon your story, and this is your introductory podcast, at least on the Waste No Day, for us. And so our listeners would love to know a little bit more about you. And if you wouldn't mind giving us kind of the nickel tour through the life of Travis and how you got into the trades, what your journey has been, and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So how I got my start. So my brother and I, we grew up in the middle of nowhere. My dad always taught us to go work for ourselves. We didn't have the typical summer that every other kid in school had. We watered trees, cleaned 30 horse stalls, all that fun stuff. But my dad always did a great job of teaching us, work ethic and to work hard. And we grew up working.
Where was this at?
It's in Cave Creek, Arizona. So north
Scottsdale
area. And we were the poor kids in a rich neighborhood. And I think my brother and I just always had an intrinsic like desire to get ahead. And we worked for my dad growing up through high school and stuff. He always taught us to manage money, to take care of our things, how to pay bills. We had checking accounts or whatever from a young age. And I ended up not wanting to stay in the construction industry. So I ended up going into banking. My brother and I both graduated high school early. I went into mortgage banking. I ended up at 19 managing a wholesale mortgage bank, and that was 2007, 2008. And I was the contact for Fannie Mae that basically said, hey, these subprime loans that you guys are giving out to all these people are going away. And so basically I tell people The Big Short was written about us. Those were the loans we were selling: subprime, stated income, 100% financing, just like the worst of the worst. And so I resigned from my position, went unemployed, ended up going into, I ended up being a teller at Wells Fargo, did great in sales there, was about to get promoted to a banker, and felt like I was just kind of restarting my whole life over again from the bottom. And then my brother's like, hey, Dad always told us to go into like the trades, into the service business. You never go, we're in the middle of the Great Recession at this point. He said, there's always work in the trades. And so, I've got this job as a plumber. You should come learn to be a plumber and we'll start a business together again. And, we did, since we were little kids, we were always hustling little side businesses. We ordered stuff out of the Oriental Trading Magazine and sold it to people at school. And we were shipping those little pit bikes in from China and building them in my dad's shop, and then we'd go sell them on the side of the road. I got at 15, I got a cease and desist from the Attorney General in Arizona because I didn't have a dealer's license.
At 15?
At 15, yeah. So yeah, we had a lot of fun stuff that kind of contributed to our entrepreneurship. But so I just resigned from Wells Fargo. My branch manager was like, "Man, you're about to become a banker. You're going to do great. You're never going to go anywhere in plumbing. Like that's a blue collar trade. You don't want to play in people's poo, man." And I said, "Yeah, I don't know. My brother's liking it. I'm going to go do it for him." So we joined forces in one truck, working for a family friend. Found the business online for sale. Said it came with two good plumbers that would run the business for you. And so it's basically that was us. And we're like, hey, if he's selling it as we'll run it for them, we might as well go do what Dad said and do it for ourselves. So got our license and just started in a truck like, everybody else and worked our way up. But one of the things that was a big takeaway for my brother is before I came on, when he worked for this company, he went to a PSI meeting, a Plumbing Success International. And it was a meeting geared.
What year would that have been?
That would have been probably around the same time, like 2006, 2007.
Okay.
And, this was really to sign owners up to be part of the network.
Yeah.
But there were some things that really struck a chord with my brother in there. That's like, man, I am never going to get ahead as the technician, which, we learn now isn't the truth. Like there's a lot of ways to get ahead in that. But, from our upbringing, he didn't particularly see it that way at that point. So, but he took away a lot, and really we drove around and built our business on notepads of, hey, we're going to look like the big guys. We're going to do the booties. Back in that day, like I would say George Brazil kind of led the way in Phoenix for like professional service. So we're going to have the mats, we're going to have the booties, we're going to have the uniforms, the wrap trucks, everything that we need to look professional, but we're going to go do it, at a better value. And of course, I think everybody starts their business not understanding the cost of business and wants to be the cheap guy to win that business. And so it's one of the biggest mistakes I think a lot of us as techs make as we go in to start our own business is that we always price for where we are in that moment, and we're not pricing, to where we're going and all the overhead we're going to incur. And, we always tried to run and I don't want to get off topic, but we always ran a pretty transparent business of trying to share those costs with our team so that they understood why we charge what we charge, which I still think we always offered a great value to our customers. But anyhow, so we did that. We grew it. We're doing great in plumbing, lots of like hyper local community interaction. And a lot of people said, hey, you got to do air conditioning. No one will come up to Anthem to do air conditioning, which for the listeners that aren't familiar with Phoenix, Anthem is just like, a shot north of Phoenix, but it's just far enough that, you have to cross the little desert to get there, and people didn't want to drive there. So we really built this reputation, this little community as the go-to guys. And we got our air conditioning license, and yeah, we failed miserably, man. Almost went out of business. We had a Ford diesel van at that point that kept breaking down, a 6.0 liter diesel that any of the gearheads know is just, if you don't fix it right, it just is a total nightmare. It was, we were running out of U-Hauls and Toyota Corollas that were our wife's. Anything we could do to keep the business afloat. And we made the mistake of saying that, hey, we're pretty good at operating the plumbing side. Surely we could just hire some HVAC guys. And, that was to our obviously huge detriment. They did horrible quality work, cost us some insurance claims, a lot of upset loyal customers. And so around 2014, 2 years later, my brother said, hey, like, we either got to shut this down, or one of us has to go to school to do it. And my brother actually was the one that started with the air conditioning guys riding along and stuff. And he's like, I really don't like this trade. Like, I'd rather do plumbing. And I said, all right, well, I'll go to school for it. So I went and got my licenses and stuff. And while I was still in school, I started selling systems. And so my schedule is basically,
before we
go ahead.
kick too far along, we're in 2014. You were breaking out of the business to go to school full time.
Yeah.
What kind of revenue are you guys doing then? Any idea?
2014, we're probably 4 to 5 million, I'd say.
Any profit at that point? Or are you in the red, or?
I mean, we never finished a year in the red, but certainly, we were in the low single digits most of the time we ran the company.
Okay, so you had a tradesman in your brother, someone who was pretty handy in yourself, a banker. I mean, you were a banker, and if I remember correctly, you were saying, was it Tyler's wife had some like accounting background and was doing the books?
Yeah. Yep.
So a plumber, a banker, and an accountant walk into a bar.
but even so, like a lot of techs and most bigger companies out there have techs working for them who quit to become an owner and failed and came back to work, realizing that life was a lot better as a tech. Even with all those, the deck seemingly stacked in your favor with all of that brain power. And the great thing about owners doing all these roles is that there's nobody punching a clock and going home at 4 and the phone goes off. Like, you're all working 24/7. And even so, it seemingly almost impossible to turn a profit and have a very profitable company, right?
Absolutely. And that's, you took kind of the words out of my mouth there, Brian, is that my schedule was so insane that I would wake up, prep the installs, because I was the warehouse guy that picked up all the equipment. And then I'd go run service calls. I'd go set condensers for the installer. So we had 2 installers. I was the outdoor guy. I'd go set condensers for the install crew. And then I'd go run service calls and sales calls. And then we didn't have any, CRMs or softwares at that point. I just had one template built on Microsoft Word that I could never get to format correctly. And so I'd go home and email estimates out all night until, 11 o'clock at night. Fortunately, I didn't have kids at the time because my wife was just like, you are working way too much. And yeah, man, it was really hard on my mental state. And, I fell into a lot of like depression and like, this isn't worth it. Like my brother ended up getting in an accident, an at-fault accident where we were getting sued when we already weren't making money. We had this great, like the savior to all of it was like the community supported us like no other because we were really good to them. But all the things that like, giving up just, I don't know, for us wasn't an option, but man, it really felt like it was the best option for a long time. And so it's really a crazy story that, we really actually became known for super high quality air conditioning installs and repairs. And so it kind of like turned our business around from like being like the really good plumbing guys that kind of did air conditioning to like we still have customers today that don't know we do plumbing because we're really known for air conditioning now. But
Wow.
a lot of that came from just being there's a buddy of ours that's in the same parent company as a Service Champions always says something to the effect of B work still passes. And it's like I was so obsessed with that A plus 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 work of like down to like there couldn't be any pookie outside the lines. And while it looks great, really the only people that appreciate that is the technicians that are going to go up and service it later, right? But
Yeah.
we hand bent every pipe, everything was offset correctly, like everything's strapped. I mean, we still put out some of the nicest installs I've ever seen, but um, yeah, it just really transformed our company. And in the year leading up to during COVID, my brother is like a super dreamer, and I I went to doomsday, flight mode during COVID of, hey, we're going to have to lay everybody off. Like I was doing all the research on the ERC programs and stuff. I said, we'll do the best we can. Let's make a list of our best people that we're going to keep no matter what. Told all the managers to get ready to go into trucks. Um, and my brother kind of went the opposite direction. He's like, how can we win business and market share? And so we went to the community that supported us. We asked them, all the women that were out there, sewing, if they could make us masks. So we got hundreds of masks made for the technicians. We ordered a 55-gallon drum of sanitizer and made our own hand sanitizer. And then my brother happened to get on Uline and see that they had pallets of toilet paper when the stores were sold out. And so he ordered all these pallets of toilet paper, got them dropped in our shop, and we did Toilet Paper Tuesday, where if you drove by our shop, we'd throw a roll of toilet paper in your car. And we got a bunch of publicity for that.
That's awesome.
News stations were calling, often emulated around by surrounding businesses. But
how many plumbing companies have had a Toilet Paper Tuesday? It
yeah,
can't be that many, right?
and I don't mean to. Like I know COVID had a negative effect on a lot of people, and friends and family were lost, and that part is really sad. So it's hard to say, but like COVID was probably the best thing that ever happened to my business. It catapulted it to new heights, and we learned a lot about ourselves. And we learned that we had incredible value, and we were surrounded by other business owners that were like friends, but like, man, you guys got to raise your prices. Like you're offering way too much and not charging nearly enough. And they were right. I mean, the year before selling, which we closed the end of 2020. So 2019, I think we made like a 6% profit on like 12 or 13 million. And my brother and I are just looking at each other like end of the year around this time, maybe a little later, maybe more around the holiday. And just like, man, what are we doing all this for? And my brother got so upset. My brother never came in early. He'll sleep in and work late. And so I show up, I'm an early bird. I show up at like 6 a.m. My brother's in the office, and it's like, dude, what are you doing here? He's like, I'm not doing this anymore for fun. Like I'm raising all of our prices. And he did. He raised all of our prices like 30%. And we went out the next year. We closed, we had actually had better closing rates, and we knocked out a 20% profit and sold the business. And so,
wow.
Yeah. And honestly,
what revenue
year,
did you do that last year?
I think the year we sold, we did around 16 and a half, 17.
Awesome.
And the next year they did like 23, 24, massive profit, so there's always that kick in the shorts of like, oh, we should have kept it. But no,
but you had Service Champions backing them up at that point. So the growth was probably a little
Service Champions
inflated.
Was interesting because they couldn't travel and stuff. And so we were one of the like newer acquisitions out of market for them. That wasn't in California. And so we didn't get touched a whole lot the first year, but we had a lot of momentum going our way. But it was certainly
okay. So that was 2021.
That was end of 2020. So this is like COVID's in its heyday right now, like that.
So you had the year of 2021 where you had actually already sold.
Yeah,
which was
and they
probably the
the
biggest year
best
in the
year.
history
Yeah,
of the home
yeah,
services. Yeah,
yeah.
of
Still
course.
the right decision for us though, and it's opened up a lot of doors and opportunities. I've
And
made
you guys weren't out completely.
no, we stayed part of it for quite a while. I mean, we still help where we can and consult and mentor our managers. Two of our operations manager and our general manager are two childhood friends, so we talk to them on a regular basis. But yeah, they're doing great, man. Like things are always going to change through these things, not necessarily for the better or the worse. They're just different. There's more accountability for things, and some people like it, some people don't. I feel like our general manager, Garrett, he thrives in that environment. Like he came from corporate environment, and he just like they eat him up because he understands how it works. Where people who grew up, like me as a technician in the field, getting my hands dirty, we have a harder time with that. Like, oh God, what are you bothering me for now? Like, how is this relevant to the business operating? Like, we put the profit on the bottom line. What else do you want from us?
Yeah,
Um, so
feels
yeah,
like red tape to guys like us, but
yeah,
guys like Nate here, they eat it up.
they eat it up. So yeah, that's kind of like a nut, like whatever they say, whatever saying you want to say there, but that beginning to end, that's like from how we got started to how we, got out
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, good story there, Travis. And, certainly a lot
Yeah,
of
man.
tears and fears and anxieties that you probably skipped over real quickly there through all of the difficulties that you guys endured. And I think our audience, which is significantly made up of technicians, people in the field, listening to this can appreciate someone who's come through it the hard way. And so as we kind of turn the corner here in terms of the episode, looking back now that you're on this side of things, and even when you were as an owner or like even the GM or those types of positions, what are the things that stood out most to you as the stuff that the frontline people miss? Like they don't get it, they don't have the right perspective. They're not looking at it through the right set of lenses. What were the things that in your mind you learned on the other side of the fence that if you could go back, you would have a different point of view?
Yeah, that's an awesome question and something I've talked about before, Nate. Now that on the other side, I do a little consulting and help some buddies out with their businesses and stuff. And I think as a technician, we often think that the business revolves around us, and we don't really give credit to how that business was brought in the door, how it got on our schedule. I mean, I know that I always complained, even when my brother was the dispatcher, of like, hey, why did you give me this call? Why did you give me this call so late? Like, hey, man, I want to go home too. And I think one of the things we did at our Pro Skill when we were still real actively involved is we started making technicians come in and play dispatcher and CSR for a day, because I think it's really that part of the business is often overlooked, of the front end cut, like personnel and what they have to deal with customers and trying to get jobs on the schedule. And it's easy to think, well, why didn't you just put it here, why don't you just put it there? But they don't understand the full gambit of what these people are trying to process. And oftentimes the customers are cranky, like they don't have air conditioning, their house has sewage in it. It's not always the easiest thing to overcome. And so that was one of the things that I thought was really beneficial, and we got a great response. We got a great response from our team when we made them go answer phones, and they're like, "Yeah, I would much rather be out in the field." So I think,
Dealing with maybe 2 or 3 customers a day instead of dealing with 23 customers a day, and
yeah,
then dealing with some salty technicians in between, and then a salty manager from time to
yeah.
time, and like,
Well,
yeah, it can be stressful.
there's a little dopamine hit when you get on a diagnostic and you figure out the issue, and you leave with a happy customer, right? The CSRs, they don't really get that. They're right back on the phone with another same situation, upset
Yep.
customer, and then you know when the guys don't follow processes that are there to protect the business, and then you get the call of like, hey, you guys told me I needed a capacitor, or you told me XYZ, my toilet was leaking, whatever, but they didn't take the picture of the reading so that we had proof that that capacitor was out of spec. And then it's our word against theirs, and we're fighting a 1-star review because And it's like, man, if you would just follow the process. And so Drew, who is our operations manager, got famous for saying, like, if you can't follow the process, you're going to force my hand to create a new process to follow the process. Like, if you would just follow the processes that are here, we could stop making processes. But you guys
Yeah.
don't, and that's why we have to
Yeah.
keep making more processes. So, yeah, I think guys, as a tech in the field, I didn't always understand, and I never worked for anyone else, so I don't want to say we don't always understand why things are done the way they're done. My brother and I thought we had all the ideas in the world to go be a different company than everybody else out there. And I see it happen all the time on these Facebook groups. These guys come in, oh, I've got this great idea. I'm going to be different. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You guys are all got it wrong. And as the day goes on and the months go on, the years go on, you realize like there's a reason that these guys did it this way. And then you end up inevitably switching to the way that you always said you would never do it because at scale, it actually makes a lot of
What
sense.
What's an example of that? I mean, I have a couple, and I think we're on the same page. But what would you say is an example of the thing that um, contractors often say is the thing they won't do because they have a better way, and then they own a company and start trying to build a company, and things change.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest one obviously out there is pricing. Like, oh, I'm never going to
Mm-hmm.
charge that much. I can't believe you charge that much for a new system or a repair. It's like, well, yeah, it's just because I didn't understand what it cost to run a business. Once I understood the cost and, you know, any less than that, and I'm not making money. Like I said, for 10 years, we made probably sub 5% profit doing a lot of work, trying to be the guys that were saving everyone money, but costing it in our employees' benefits, costing in our employees' vacation time, costing in not buying new trucks. And so there's always a cost. It's just, is it the cost to the business or the customer? Um, and so things like that. Gosh, what are some other ones that people always say? Service charges. My brother and I tried to run without a service or diagnostic charge, and man, what a catapult it was for our business. We got so many calls, and then we realized that the calls we were getting were from the absolute worst clientele ever.
The old Angie's List client, huh?
Yeah, like just like, oh, thanks for the diagnostic. Now I'm going to go order the parts. Like we're the kings of those customers. And we're like, man, is everybody really this cheap? It's like, no, they're not. It's just that's exactly who we marketed for.
Mm-hmm.
And so things like that, billboards and radio advertising and just like all the things that, as a technician, not even like as technicians in the field, even when I own my own business, I'm listening and seeing these other companies do it. And it's like, I'm never going to do that. We only had selling techs. We weren't going to have any, comfort advisors. And then it's like, well,
That's the big one that you hear the most is like
yeah,
sending a sales guy out, quote unquote. Obviously, the pricing one's huge, but I would say the biggest one you hear is like sending a sales guy. That's something I would
yeah,
never do. That's where you guys all go wrong, and you're like, man, if you can send a tech out and he's going to close, say, 2 out of 4 calls he runs, and you can send a quote unquote sales professional out who's not much of a tech, who's going to close 3 to 3.5 out of 4.
yeah,
Do you know how much more money
yeah,
the company's
yeah,
keeping as opposed to
yeah.
paying all that money to acquire a customer and then losing it to the competitor anyway? It's like,
What? Yeah. And if they were all Brian or, the Brent Buckleys of the world, you know, that's different. Brent can go in as a technician and sell the world.
yeah,
My technicians didn't do that. I don't know about anyone else's technicians, but my technicians sold the absolute lowest end system out of their own pocket,
yeah,
and it was just like, man, this isn't working. And then when my brother and I started selling and we started selling a ton of inverters, it was like, this really isn't working because these opportunities are there and our guys just aren't doing it. So then we started bringing in consultants, and it's like, oh, this is far better. We had a guy, Brian Noblock, was our first like full time sales consultant, and you know back then it was a pretty significant deal to do $3 million, and he came in 9 months, did $3 million, and it really he had a big impact on our business.
wow,
And still a friend, he's a great guy. He works at a different company now, but you know, I think that's, definitely the sales guy mentality of like, I'm never going to sell something my customer doesn't need. It's like, man, I don't think there's all these guys going in and selling customers things they don't need. I think what they do is get good at looking at what does a customer want and offering that. I mean, there's going to be bad apples everywhere, but um, for the most part, I don't think every tech, I feel like every technician thinks everybody else at every other company is a bad person, and it's like they're not. Trust me,
Yeah.
they're just out there. There's a lot of good, honest people just trying to make a living like everybody else.
It's not even a lot. I mean, I say this over and over on the show, probably to the point where it's exhausting, but I do nothing but visit companies. I visit companies every freaking chance I get and go see teams. And you know how rare it is to meet a guy where the hair on the back of your neck stands up and you go, this is a
Yeah,
bad dude right here.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
yeah. Not
rare.
often, not
But
often.
if you go on like a Facebook group of a plumbing, 100,000 plumbers or electricians or HVAC techs, it's like everyone in a white shirt is the devil,
Yeah, yeah,
They're all
yeah.
evil. It is funny how, you know, just not being familiar with people just breeds this I'm better than them.
Yeah, and that's another one. I'll never pay commission. I'll never do performance based pay. It's like, yeah, we tried that, man. We got taken to the cleaners, man. These guys are getting 60 hours a week sitting in attics watching YouTube. And then when we figured that out, and we all of a sudden started giving people a performance basis, we were having trucks. A good month for one of our plumbing trucks was 25, 30 grand. Now we consistently have a bunch of guys that are doing, over 70,000 a month. It's like, wow, we left a lot of money out there in overtime and lost opportunity, just, people not doing their job. And so that's another one that is.
Yeah, and it's not only getting taken to the cleaners in terms of guys milking the hourly, but you have the kind of guys gravitating to your team that
Yep.
want to be on hourly, and they're not the guys certainly on this call right now. If
Yeah.
the three of us have to go get, or most of the people we have on this show, if you have to go get a job right now, you're going to look for something with performance pay. If I
Right.
do more, I earn more. Not
Yep.
I can work twice as hard as the guy next to me and we make the same hourly rate for 8 hours. I have no interest in that.
Yeah. They fly in under the guise of that. Well, I'm the honest guy. It's like, well, maybe you're the honest guy. You're also probably not the hardest working guy. So, you
Yep.
know,
Are you taking a shot at the union right now, buddy? I feel like you're taking a shot at the union.
no, hey man, I don't know enough about the union to even have an opinion on it, man. You're in
Uh,
Arizona now. The union doesn't exist.
yeah, that's nice. I grew up in Detroit though, so it was it was a lot of
Yeah.
union. I still have family in the union, and we like to go
So,
back and forth, but it's fine.
well, Travis, this has been good conversation so far, and I'm wondering here, as like we are in the midst of the holiday season, and there's a lot of busyness about things. There's a lot of seasonality changes. There's a lot of coming and going of money in the retail world, and all those things are pulling at the attention of the client.
Mhm.
And so, if you had the opportunity to speak to the listening base of this podcast, and again, a lot of technicians, plumbers, electricians who are driving in their truck right now. In fact, our tagline is basically "Who's in your passenger seat?" It happens to be Travis today. And you speak to them
Yeah,
directly, and you say, guys, gals, as you're driving to this call, these are the key elements that I think you should focus on that make you different, a different experience, a memorable experience. Because there's been a lot of leveling of the playing ground when it comes to booties and shirts and
Absolutely.
processes and all this stuff. And a lot of people have caught up, and there's very few innovations when it comes to the X's and O's of how to run the call. I mean, there's this and that and stuff, but like a lot of people are running in the same bracket of
Yep.
performance. So how do I, as a tech, if I'm listening to you speak right now, what would you tell me that, man, these are the things that I think you should be focusing on, so that the client you're going to right now, they call your company back and they ask for Travis?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question again, Nate. And I think it goes back to what you just said is so true, that you can't differentiate yourself with, a good mascot, a wrap, some booties, in a uniform anymore. Like that's what everybody does. So I think you really got to look back at the core of human interactions and go back to, we spoke about it a little bit before, but, you know, I live by the golden rule. I always treat people with respect and kindness. That's how I want to be treated. I'm honest with them. And so I think you got to be authentic to yourself. And I think you got to go in and find the common ground. And I think through common ground, you'll find and build trust. Um, you know, I was recently, I work with Texas Medley at Medley Heating, Air, and now Plumbing in a Dallas market. And I was there, and there's this guy, just super outgoing, man. His name's Jeremy, and he's got his Next Star book in his hand, and he's getting real frustrated because he's asking everybody for a review, and he's not getting any reviews. And so I stopped him. I just overheard the conversation. I stopped him the next morning, and I said, "Hey, did you get any reviews yesterday?" He goes, "No, man. I had someone on the hook, and they didn't give me that review." And I said, "Give me your spiel." And he like looks at his book, and then he goes through like the just like verbatim Next Star spiel about getting his review. And I said, "You know what I think the problem is, Jeremy, is I think you're not being authentic. I think people are seeing that you're just rehearsing a script." And so I don't think, I'm not going to speak for Next Star because I was never part of it, but I don't think they want you to stick to a script. I think they're giving you an outline, a premise of what you want to say, but you got to make this authentic to yourself. We always joke, one of our installers at ProScale, his name is Carl. He would say, "Hey, um, at ProScale, we get rewarded for great customer service. And honestly, I depend on, the rewards of those to feed my family. So if you could leave me a review, it would sure mean a lot." And,
Carl,
then he'd put on the puppy dog face, and we'd always give him a hard time. But you know what? The guy got so many reviews as an installer. It was crazy. But so I think they really got to go be authentic. They need to learn to communicate and find common ground. People love talking about themselves if you can draw them out. And sorry, were you going to say something, Brian?
No, I was going to let you finish. But when we're talking reviews, in this case, are we talking like Net Promoter Score, where the review is going to come 2 days later and we hope they fill it out? Or are we talking right there on site type reviews?
No, so I mean, we got on the review train pretty early at ProSkill, and so there wasn't any.
You guys were killing it in reviews.
Yeah, we did pretty good on it, and there wasn't any software at that time, so we just developed a process of asking for the review, and would just say, "Hey, if you go on Google and leave us a review, it really helps us, and it's how we keep our marketing costs down. By it works as a referral to our customers, to future customers." And we got a lot of buy-in. People did it, and so he was basically just going in and asking for the review, and then we just there's a lot better reward systems now, but we used to pay like $5 a review, and then if you got the most reviews that month, you got like $10 a review, and so our company was just always competing for reviews.
Yeah, how many? Any idea how many Google reviews you guys had when you exited?
We like 5,100. I think they're at like 6,000 some now.
Nice.
68.
Yeah.
In 3 years. They went up 1,000 in 3 years.
Yeah, they haven't. Well, listen,
take the foot off the gas.
Things change, man, and so when my brother and I were at the helm, like customer service and reviews was everything. And when one of the things that changes when legacy owners leave is the culture that of what they cared about. And my brother and I cared a lot about that stuff. And it hasn't gone up nearly as much. It's not climbing fast as it was. Now, the other side of that, I've spoke a lot about reviews through the years, is that it's really easy. If you've got a 20,000 customer database, it's really easy to go get the first 5,000 reviews, because you've got like good loyal customers, and you're going to go see all of them. And a lot, you'll get like a 20% response rate or so, 25% the first ask. But over the years, like it'll start to really dwindle down on your response rate. I think when we left, I think we were getting like a 4% response rate, because if you have a loyal clientele, which you hope you do, right? At the end of the day, they can only write one review. So you're running the same jobs for the same people, and they've already left you a review. So, I don't think it's necessarily all the cultural shift, but I definitely think that's part of it. But it was also that even before we left, it was going down. I mean, we were tacking on thousands, and then, a year for a couple of years, like no problem.
Travis, would you be kind enough? I mean, Yeah, obviously this was a very important part of who you were and what you brought into the business. Would you be kind enough to kind of role play your own script? You know, if you put yourself back in the technician truck for a minute, like how would you interact and ask for that with a client without coming off as inauthentic or scripted or like the company makes me do this? What did that sound like as you were wrapping up the call with a client?
I'll be your client, Travis.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to say that like one of my favorite things to do as a technician was a water heater because I would clean like the whole garage everywhere around it. So, I knock on the
Mm.
door and I'd say, hey, Brian, I'm just wrapping up out here. I'd like to show you a little bit about the work I completed and go over the water heater and its, the functions of it with you real quick if you just got a moment.
Sure, absolutely. Let's go.
And of course, Brian would come out and see this sparkling clean garage in one corner that wasn't like that before. I'm like, man, thank you so much. And so then I just say, look, hey, here is the warranty. Here is your model number, serial number. I wrote the date that it was installed. This is how this new Honeywell gas valve functions. Let me show you how to relight it. One of the biggest nuisances for a customer is the pilot light goes out and they have no idea how to relight it. So I'll go through all that to them. By the way, there's going to be some air in the lines and some junk. So you want to make sure you open a bathtub, not a shower, not a faucet. Open a bathtub all the way to hot. Let all the air clear out. And so I'd walk through that with them, go do it with them, and then at the end, I'd always ask, I'd say, how does everything look? Are you happy with the way the job turned out? And then, of course, yeah, it looks great. Thank you so much. And I'd say, hey, listen, we're trying to build our reputation online and we try to keep our marketing costs low, and that helps us keep our prices a lot lower. And so if you would do me a huge solid, if you would take 5 minutes, go on our Google and leave us a review, it'd mean a lot to me. That's it. Like,
Absolutely.
it wasn't
Who's saying
fancy.
no to that?
I think what I always try to teach my guys to do though is really like wrap up the job with them, teach them something, make sure they're seeing the value of the work you did, and not just, all right, yeah, it's $1,200. Where's the checkbook? Like make sure they feel like you delivered an end product that's shiny and they're happy to pay the price, and not like, oh, this is the grumpy plumber that comes over again.
Yeah, some
Yeah, and
level, or what I always train, some level. I did in a truck and then trained later, is at some level a sacrificial amount of service to that person. Like it yes, of course I'm there giving of my time, but I'm getting paid for my time. But at some level I always needed to feel like it cost me something to serve this person, or I wasn't serving at a high enough capacity. Because the only difference with me asking for the review, we had the NPS score, and I don't know if you know what that is, or if most people know what that is anymore, but the Net Promoter Score, NPS, it's a real way to track how the client actually felt without you being able to pressure them into the review while you were there. Right. Because they would get that review 2 days after you were there.
Yeah.
And then they could just not fill it out. And oftentimes they didn't. But I would ask on the front end first. I would say, at the end of this, I'm going to ask you to give me a 5-star or 10 if it was NPS, but we'll say it's Google, a 5-star review. When we're all done here today, I'm going to ask you for a 5-star review. Now, if at any point in time between now and then I do anything that you feel like is causing you to not want to give me that 5-star review, would you do me a big favor and just say time out and let me know, please? Because if you don't tell me, I don't know. And I can just be completely oblivious to what I'm doing sometimes. So at any point, let me know. And then we get to the end, and I would just, if it was the one that was coming 48 hours later, I would ask them if I can count on them for that review. And of course they would say yes. And then I would stick my hand out and ask them to shake it. And I would say, so you're telling me I can count on you for that review? And I would look them in the eye and make them shake my hand. And, that cognitive dissonance, man, that when you get that review after doing that, it's like hard to lie about it,
Yeah.
But on the Google front, I just turn the thing around and I'm like, hey, do you have an account where we can do a review right now? I'm like asking them to do it right here, right now. And like Tommy, our mutual friend, Tommy Mello, who actually gave me your phone number initially when I got a hold of you, he does that thing where he's like, I'm going to ask you to give me a review on 3 different platforms. So I'd
and a video testimonial.
And a video. Yeah. We're going to post something on Facebook too, but Nextdoor, Google, and Yelp. And then we're going to do a video testimonial. And I never took it to that level, but of course, like so many things you hear that are that brilliant and simple, you go, why didn't I?
Yeah.
Why not? Why aren't we doing this?
Yeah. If there's one thing that Ishmael and Tommy have taught me is that you better just ask. That's it. Like I've seen them get so much from just asking. Same thing with our with Service Titan. It's like, hey, we need a table for 20 people. Sorry, sir, we can't do that without reservations. Uh, well, listen, here's the thing. I really need a table for 20 people. Can you figure out a way to get us a table for 20 people? No, sir, I'm sorry. We ended up at a table with 20 people. It's like it's like they're just insistent and they ask for what they want. And I'm just always blown away when I'm hanging out. We have our little LSD crew with all those guys in it, and it's just like, wow, these guys ask and they get. And I've never been one to ask, but I was so protective of our customers that, I didn't allow our technicians to ask them for a review on the spot because it went against what I thought was like authentic, being authentic to the customer.
Sure.
And, I did want the real review. I didn't want to review gate them. So if they weren't happy, we had a personal, a challenge basically in our company is what the culture became of if we get a 1-star review, who can call that customer the fastest? Because if we're getting a
Wow.
1-star review, we're fixing that immediately because it's still top of mind for them too. And I really think if you show a customer you care, that 9 times out of 10 you can turn the situation around to having them be one of your biggest promoters.
And speaking of promoters,
absolutely, man, the people, because they're when an upset client is the loudest client by a long shot, they're going to tell what is it, as many as 6 people versus a happy client usually tells no people, but at the most one.
Yeah.
But if you flip an upset client and get them back on your side, they're still as vocal in that new emotion that they're feeling, and you find them to be your biggest cheerleaders. It's really awesome, but it's still, you still have everyone knows this. We all know this in the industry, right? But still get that angry client tomorrow, and you're like, you're staring at the sticky note, like I don't want to call back. Take 3 hours to make a 2-minute phone call that goes.
Who posted that? Who just posted that? Someone just posted like something about I've never overthought making a call that lasted 3 minutes to an upset customer so much in my life. It's like we all do that. Like I'll sit there and look at that and rehearse every scenario, and it's just like, oh yeah, we can easily fix that for you. Yeah, we're on our way. Oh, that was it.
5 seconans. Yeah.
God, I wish I handled this a lot earlier.
And it goes the same when you're running calls, and the dispatcher, if you have a cool dispatcher that you're cool with, man, she was so mean on the phone. He was a prick. You don't even, oh, I'm sorry, I got to send you this one. Yeah. And you knock on the door, and they open the door with a huge smile. Hey, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It's like the anticipation's just always worse than reality.
Well, it goes back to that. What I would tell people is that, it's probably because that dispatcher took a lot of the emotional brunt of that call. And by the time the technician got there, the people felt bad.
Yep. And remember that, technicians out there, Christmas is right around the corner. Remember your dispatcher, who does oftentimes take the brunt, and you have no idea until you sit in a dispatch office in Lancaster, where Nate's at in Pennsylvania. They have two dispatchers, one for the 1 hour and then one for Ben Franklin and Mr. Sparky. And you can sit literally between them and just watch them do their thing for any amount of time. And I would sit in there for hours talking to them when they're available, and then just letting them do their thing when they're not. And you have no idea, Tex, how far out of their way these guys go. And I'll give them a shout out to Julian and John, to take the beating for you and calm clients down and save you from arguments and negative feelings when you get there. You have no idea how far out of their way these guys go for that, and get very little credit for it. So don't forget your dispatcher. It's Christmas is coming.
There you go.
Travis, as you've contemplated things on the other side of the fence, and you've seen the reviews come in, you've seen some changes in culture and things like that. If you were going to start over today and you were going to start from scratch, and when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that you were getting back into a truck, although that could be an opportunity. but you were going to start, from zero, nothing. What would be the core values that you would hire for like the ultimate technician, the ultimate plumber, the ultimate electrician? What would be the things that you would say, listen, in the interview room, when you sit down in the conference room, I need to see this, this, and this, or it's a no-go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be cliche, but it's probably going to be obviously punctuality, um, as far as appearance of are they neatly kept. I don't care about tattoos and earrings and stuff, but can they present themselves in a way that a customer will find them professional. The ability to make eye contact and shake my hand and be conversational. I think phones have really made taken away some of the conversationalness of people. And so
Oh yeah.
as a technician, you got to be able to go out there and converse and find that common ground. Like I said, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. People buy from people they trust. And so you got to build that bridge on every single job that you go on. So uh, I think it'd really be the cliche things of what we all want is, a trustworthy, honest person that's got, good morals and was raised right to look people in the eye, shake their hand, and be on time.
And some drive helps. A little ambition.
Yeah. Yeah. That goes a long way too.
Love to have somebody who's looking for the next rung of the ladder in some capacity at all times. All times.
When that's,
Go ahead.
I'll just shout out, our operations manager, Drew. Like you said, he showed up to take an install position and he was in college and he's like, hey man, I still got to go to college. I got to get off early certain days to go to college. And so that's cool. Like, what are you doing in college? I was studying business. And I was like, okay, sounds good. I don't think you're going to need that here. And he just was like, hey, just always keep me in mind for promotion. Cause like, I'm a good installer and I've done it, but like, I really have higher aspirations, than this. And I said, all right, man. And sure enough, as we went through, and he's one of my best friends now, but, every time there was a new position available, he'd apply for it. And he was so smart about how he applied for it. He's 31 now as the operations manager of a $27 million company. Wow. And when he went to be the install manager, he has taken it from me. I was running sales and install at the time. He went to all the installers and said, hey, listen, I know all of the issues that we have. Here's my proposal of how I would fix all those issues if I was the install manager. Would you guys support me if I interview for that position? Because he was one of the younger installers of the team. And they're like, dude, if you could fix all that, 100%. So he came to us and was like, hey, I want to apply for that position. Here's all the problems. Here's all the solutions. Here's how I'm going to, fix and institute these solutions. And I was like, all right, well, you're a shoo-in for the job. And then I was going to give up sales. So he took over sales management too. And then he moved up and jumped up to operations manager, which he was actually really a general manager because Garrett, our general manager, was running multiple branches for Service Champions. So he was running the bigger branch for Garrett. And he actually just had a going away party Friday because he was offered a position to go run the start of a roll up in a different industry. So it just goes to show, like, with the right drive and ambition, and you do what your job entitles, but also anything more that you can grab on to improve your worth. I mean, he made killer money at Pro Skill, and he's gonna, now he's a equity partner in the beginnings of a roll up. So ambition goes a long way, Brian.
That's awesome. And you guys, I don't know if you attracted it or created it. And I'm sure there's a combination of the two. Certainly attracted the right people and then grooming processes. But you guys have have a reputation for very empathetic and caring and community focused technicians. And it brings me to a story that I heard Cristiano, another mutual friend of ours, told. He was on our show here a few weeks ago as well. But I heard your episode of his show where he was talking about how Anna, his wife's mom, used you guys and they couldn't get an HVAC unit installed at night. And I don't know, couldn't do the repair or whatever. we're putting in a new system or something. But she didn't have any heat, and it's Arizona, but you catch it in December, January, February. It can still get pretty cold at night, and your tech went and bought her some heaters or something, or like found some heaters for her and brought them back and put heaters in the home. And like that sounds like an of course you would thing, but there are plenty of people listening to this show right now who did not do that for a client before, or in some capacity could have done something like that and didn't. And I don't know if they knew it was the mother-in-law of a friend of yours or anything like that. I'm guessing not, because the way he told the story, it was like that was the kind of people you employ. But is that a hiring thing? Is that a grooming thing? Is that a culture thing? Like, how do you get people doing stuff like that?
Yeah. So at that time, Yano and I, when that all transpired, we weren't actually like buddies yet. Like, we had talked through Facebook and stuff a little bit, like, hey, we live right down the street from each other. We should really hang out. But, Tommy Mello used to tell me the same thing. I lay pretty low, and I don't always go out of my way to make new friends, but now they're some of my closest friends, and they're just great dudes. But, yeah, I think it's a big cultural thing. I mean, probably the thing that I'm proudest of in my career thus far is the way that our team treated customers. Like, they really cared. They really, I I had a technician recently, had a customer that was just having a bad day. An elderly lady, long term customer. Her husband had just passed, and she had some toilet issues that we had to grab some specialized parts for, like specialized flapper or whatever. And so he was going back the next day, and he stopped and got her flowers. No one told him to. We always taught our guys to give a shit about the customers, and I would always tell them at meetings. I said, it's easy for us to say every customer is crazy, but I've often said that, but the more that I listen to customers and hear them out, the more I realize that we made a mistake and they weren't crazy after all. So I don't want to keep biting my tongue, or you always use the excuse that the customer's crazy. Like, we're imperfect too, and we can make mistakes. So, like, let's own those mistakes and make it better. So, yeah, I mean, we had a temporary comfort program where if we were installing a system, we'd install a new condenser outside if your compressor was out. We would charge up the unit with refrigerant. It was always our aim to keep our customers comfortable, because, we were those guys, like, we were 6 weeks out in the summer on an install. Like, we couldn't do next day installs because we got booked so far out. And so, yeah, I mean, that's one area that, I'm really proud of, that we got known for, is that, people would always say when they recommended us, like, hey, these guys actually care. Like, they actually do give a crap. And, yeah, and I think that was our culture. And it wasn't that my brother and I were, solely responsible for that. We started it, and then it was just passed down from technician to technician as they rode around. They'd be famous. I'm like, hey, that's not how ProSkill does it. Like, we do that a little differently. And the same thing with the quality of work. Like, to this day, I mean, our guys are one-uppers on who can install the nicest tankless or the nicest condenser. We have a lot of contests in the business about it. I mean, these guys do spectacular work, and they don't get paid more to do spectacular work. It's just it's a level of pride in the culture of the business, and we've attracted guys that really like doing high-quality work because of that culture.
Well, this has been good conversation, Travis. And as we bring things in for a landing here, if people are interested in learning more about you, opportunities that you have in your business or your network of business, or even the consulting that it sounds like you're doing a little bit of, where's a good place to find you or reach out to you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to help anyone. I love helping people, and I don't have any consulting businesses or anything, but reach out to me on Facebook if you're not part of Service Avengers. If you guys don't mind me shouting that out, I'm an admin on that with Ishmael, who's a close friend of mine. We're always trying to bring
we're in there.
Yeah, you're in there. So we have a big aim, and we get in trouble with a lot of the guys, industry people that have businesses that are. We kick a lot of them out because we don't want any marketing in there. We really want it to be a place for contractors to share ideas and contractors to support each other and not have their inboxes full of crap. And so I regularly get messages of like, hey, why did I get kicked from the group? And it's like, because you were promoting your company, basically. And we're trying to avoid that. So
sorry about all those episode drops.
Sometimes Ishmael will let episodes through. Usually if it's got his name
sometimes
on it,
always if it has Ishmael's name on it. I started thinking about just putting his name in the title every now and then.
But it comes from a good place in that we really want a place that contractors can go and talk and strategize together. So I'm always on there. I'm always on Facebook. Get my number from Brian. You're welcome to hand my number out. I'd be happy to help anyone and share my experience. I wouldn't have got where I am today if it wasn't for people like Tom Howard and Ishmael and Chris Hayes helped me a lot, a local competitor here. Just the advice they gave me through the years really catapulted my business, especially at the end. So I try to pay that back to the industry.
Are you back in Phoenix yet?
I'm still in Idaho. I'll be in Phoenix in December, end of December.
Okay, cool. All right. We got to get together, buddy.
Are we golfing?
I'm on my, you're not going to want to golf.
Please go golfing and videotape it for all of the ways.
I'm hitting people with golf balls. It's a mess.
That's half the fun.
Oh, all right. Then I'm in. I actually took golf lessons because I was so bad, and I would golf with Nate and our leadership team from time to time. And I was so bad at it, I said, screw it. I'm going in the middle of winter in Pennsylvania, and I'm taking golf lessons. And I took them. But this was February of 2020. And then before I ever got to go use them, they closed the golf courses for a year. Yeah. And when I went and swung a club, I was worse than I was before I had lessons. And I was like, all right, golf, we had our run. We gave it a nice try, But I didn't realize how much golf happens here. But I'll get into it, buddy. But not before December.
Yeah. Well, hey, guys, it was a surprise when you reached out, Brian. This is the first podcast I've done, I think, since Yano. So I appreciate the time and having me on. And like I said, if I can help anyone, I'd be happy to do so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Travis.
I can't tell you all the people who have, including, Tommy and Chris and Josh Kelly and all these people that have told me what a great guy you are and that we had to connect. So that's why I made the phone call, and I was talking to you for like 5 minutes before I was like, this episode's a done deal. We got to make this happen. I actually think I said I wish we had recorded the phone conversation we had, because that would have been a great episode. But yeah, we appreciate you coming on, man, and giving so freely of your time to everybody who needs it.
You bet. Nice meeting you, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise, Travis. And that's a wrap for this podcast. We hope that you enjoyed your time listening to Travis in your passenger seat. Always good to hear from somebody who's been through the hard parts of the trades and has come out on the other side and has a great perspective on things. So it's good to hear from him, and even the small things that it really matters to focus on. Again, we're coming towards the end of the year here. And so if you feel like you've maybe dropped off your level of service, no better time now than to pick it back up and challenge yourself with that, and maybe do a little review contest with you and the guys at your shop in terms of driving that level of service and then seeing it come back to you in the reviews and what that can do for you, your fulfillment of your job, and of course, the return customer base that you hope to serve in the future. We appreciate everything that you guys do for us in listener land. Thank you so much for tuning in every single week, and we hope that you are enjoying the show. And of course, we want to challenge you to choose to wake up every single morning and waste no day.